the point I'm trying to make is, if someone would get hold of this man or other animals idea besides me, for example, we hear that people are being jailed or at least to have their property taken away from them when they're trying to sell raw milk. The government, its infinite wisdom, has declared that they're going to have a war against raw milk. You can't have raw milk. I don't know what you women are going to do if you start breastfeeding. It may be that giving raw milk to your baby before this is all over, that may be. Who knows what they're going to do with this thing. Raw milk is one of them. This other business of forced vaccinations, they are both evidence of a system that relies on the presumption that we are nothing but livestock. We're animals in the government's view. They can't give you shots. Shots constitute drugs. It's medical devices and drugs are both defined to apply to animals. The whole medical establishment is based on the presumption that you are nothing but livestock. The pharmaceutical industry is based, and billions of dollars of profits are based on the presumption that you are nothing but livestock. The government's ability to give out these kinds of vaccinations is based on the presumption that you and your children are nothing but freaking animals, livestock. All of this can be stopped if someone just has brains enough to understand this concept and say, look, it's an act of genocide, you can't do this to us, and call the government. This has been going on since 1906. The Pure Food and Drug Act was the first time that I've been able to discover that they used the phrase man or other animals, meaning they deemed man to be an animal, rather than a man made in God's image and endowed by his Creator with certain unalienable rights. You know, if people would get this idea, they could stop the government. Because the government can't take the political heat of admitting that they have been conspiring to commit genocide, and that's what this is, genocide against the American people since 1906. That's what it is. I mean, genocide, people listen and they say, oh, that's crazy talk. No, it's not. The law on genocide does not require that you actually kill anyone. Genocide only requires that you commit genocide only requires that you commit acts that make it more probable that a particular group or a race or a particular ethnic group, religion, whatever, you make it more probable that they're going to die. When the government declares you and I to be animals, what is the consequence of that declaration? You no longer have the unalienable rights that are declared in the Declaration of Independence. That's what it is. You look into your constitutions, you look into your state constitutions, and Texas Constitution, we the people of the state of Texas, we've got the Constitution of the United States, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Those constitutions are derived for people. They are derived, and word people means men and women. It doesn't include animals. Once they get you in a situation where they deem you to be an animal, nothing but livestock, they have reduced your God-given unalienable rights. They've reduced whatever rights you might be able to claim under your state or federal constitution. They've basically zeroed them out, and when they strip you of your rights, they are necessarily making it more probable that you will die. When you have less rights, you're more vulnerable. That's inevitably the case. More. I've harped on it a number of times. The website, genocidewatch.org. You can go there and find a document. You'll have to do a little fishing, but it's up there. It's called the 8 Stages of Genocide. Stage 3 is dehumanization. Each of these stages constitutes a separate act of genocide. And stage 3 is dehumanization, and that's where people declare their intended victims to be insects, vermin, or animals. They reduce you from the status of a man made in God's image. I've harped on it a number of times on this program, but it's important stuff. It's fundamental. It's fundamental to try and regain freedom in this country. The government can't treat us like a pack of damn animals. And for it to try is an act of genocide. And it's been going on for over a century in this country, and we're only just now beginning to pick up on it. Well, these people, these parents whose children are herded into the Maryland courthouse, if they could grasp this idea but the government regards us as animals. And realize how to present this and argue against it from a religious principle, from a religious foundation. I believe that they could stop this kind of behavior. And the reason is that you get in front of a jury, I guarantee there's going to be some Christians on that jury. There may be some Jews on the jury. There may even be a couple of Muslims on the jury. And none of them can stand the idea that we are animals. If we are not made in God's image, as per the Genesis 1, 26 through 28, if we are not made in God's image and given dominion over the animals, then we are nothing but livestock. But you try to argue the contrary and say, look, I'm a man made in God's image and given dominion over the animals as per Genesis 1, 26 through 28. If you are a little bit adept, you can make that point. You can get a jury to say, yeah, that's right. You put some of these pieces together, and then you go to the Declaration of Independence, and you explain, look, it says all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Those unalienable rights accrue to men. They do not accrue to animals. Third sentence of the Declaration, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. They're telling us the purpose of government, as envisioned by the Founding Fathers, was to secure our God-given, unalienable rights. Not state-given, not government-given, God-given, unalienable rights. That was the purpose of government, secure them. But they don't have to secure those rights if you're nothing but an animal. They have injected the premise that we are animals, and based on that, they're building prison camps, they are building more. We jail more people in this country as a percentage of population than any other nation on earth. And now they're herding children like cattle in Maryland to give them vaccinations whether they want them or not. It may be convenient for the government to treat us like animals, but it is absolutely dangerous and potentially lethal for us to accept that classification. I've tried to communicate this. I've talked to someone who represents a woman who is she sells health products here in Texas, and she's been sued by the FDA for selling vitamins. I reached her attorney, right? And she's apparently a pretty good Christian. She does TV programs and the rest of that, and I've never met the woman myself. I've never seen her, but she's apparently something of a TV evangelist who sells vitamins. Well, they're coming after her. I tried to explain it to him. I tried to explain it to the attorney. I contacted him. I said, look, I don't want any money. I'm just trying to let you know. He didn't seem to get the idea, right? He just, we'll think about that. And it wasn't just where he was skeptical of the idea. He just didn't seem to even understand it. And the woman herself, I tried to make this information available to her, but, without any apparent success. I've sent information to people involved in the raw milk controversy. They don't get it. I don't blame them. These are people that are just trying to get some milk and make cheese. I mean, these people are not focused on the law, and they can't believe that some nutcase like me is going to come up with some idea that none of the attorneys know about. It becomes almost incomprehensible for an average person, and so the government continues to steamroll over these people because they don't understand things about the law and the political system. They don't understand how to argue things in court. I don't blame them a bit, but it has to be, somebody's got to get this. Somebody's got to get this idea and be able to apply it. And under those circumstances, I think you can also intimidate the government, much as we did in our own case down here in Austin back a couple of years ago, where they just finally drop a case after they'd invested almost $500,000 in 6 years. They just dropped it. They can't take the political heat if you understand the concept. It's not just about law. It's about politics. It's about what can you tell the jury? Can I stand up? Can the prosecution explain to the jury that it's a good idea for them to be treated like animals? Can they explain that against a background of where you understand the concept of genocide and against a background of where you express fundamental principles from the Christian faith? Is a jury going to accept the government's argument? The government can't touch this thing. They depend on it, they rely on it, but they can't touch it in public. They have to cut and run, at least in my opinion. Just because I say so doesn't make it so. Just because we had that one success doesn't prove it's going to work in every instance. But I believe it can work. When I see stories like this, children are being forced to be vaccinated. I guarantee you that's what it's based on. You dig into this thing, you show me the law that they're running this on, I guarantee that at bottom the presumption is they're nothing but animals. And if you're going to allow your government to treat you like an animal, you got nobody to blame but yourself. If you're going to let the government treat your children like animals, who are you going to blame? You. People have to make the effort. This is not easy stuff, and you're fighting against an adversary that's organized, that has been devising strategies, presumptions, statements in the law that ordinary people just overlook and they don't realize what it means. They've been planting this stuff in the law for over a century. People have been working to undermine the foundation of this country, and that foundation goes back to the idea that we are endowed, each of us are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Point one, and point two, that the purpose of government, fundamental purpose of government, is to secure those rights. From my perspective, that's the essence of what came to be called the Republican form of government. The Republican form of government is guaranteed in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution of the United States, and it's also guaranteed in the Constitution of the State of Texas at Article 1, Section 2. I don't have the Texas Constitution in front of me right now, but it says subject to this limitation only. People of Texas have at all times a right to alter or modify their government. I think it even said abolish it any way they want. Except for one thing, they must keep the Republican form of government. I've never seen a definition of the Republican form of government. I don't know what that definition is, all right? Not for an absolute fact. But what I do know is that the Declaration of Independence starts out and it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then the third sentence it says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Well, that declaration created 13 new governments. It changed them from colonies into states. They were not states of the Union at that time, but states. They created from colonies to states. They had their own government. It is inconceivable that those governments created by the Declaration of Independence, those states created by the Declaration of Independence, did not enjoy the Republican form of government. It had to be, the term Republican form of government came later with the Constitution, 1787. It would be 20 years later that we get the Constitution, and that's where we first see Republican form of government. But it has to have been the form of government that existed among those 13 states. That form of government, in my opinion, has to have included the two principles. One, we get our rights from God, and two, the fundamental business of government is to secure those God-given unalienable rights. From my perspective, that is the essence of the Republican form of government. We've got a bunch of people say, give me a republic. I want to restore the republic. I don't give a damn about the republic. The republic doesn't mean anything other than the people get to participate in government. You could grow up to be president. That's all the Republican means. You can, I can, everybody gets to be president, as compared to an aristocracy, for example, or perhaps a monarchy, where not everybody gets to be king, not everybody gets to be the aristocracy. Those are not republics. Communism is a republic. Democracy is a republic. Everybody gets to participate. That's all a republic means. It is the Republican form of government that says, you, in my opinion, this is what I believe it means. It means that you and I are each endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and point to its business government to secure those rights. Do we have the Republican form of government today? No. Why don't we? Government doesn't want it. Government finds it far more convenient to treat us all as livestock. John is on the phone from Missouri. How you doing, John?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I was just thinking about something as you've been talking about it, and I wonder if we have all of our rights as we're supposed to be, and they're unalienable, as you were just explaining it, did they not have to take us out of the republic and put us into that corporate fiction state, whatever, in order to be able to call us an animal and not a man or a woman?
I think that's part of it. It guarantees Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says the United States, I don't have it right here in front of me, I have it close, maybe I can find it right now. Article 4, Section 4, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. All right? Doesn't say anything about and what that means is there is a Republican form of government for Texas, and there's a Republican form of government for Missouri, and there is another Republican form of government for New York, and another one for Florida. Each state has its own Republican form of government. This does not apply to the whole country. We do not have one Republican form of government that covers the whole country. We have, in theory, 50 of them. If we have 50 states of the Union, we should have 50 independent Republican forms of government. That's what it says. But if they do, they have to admit we're made in God's image. They have to admit that we're all endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. They can't, but there's no obligation for the Republican form of government on a national level. There's no obligation in Washington, D.C. There's no obligation in the territories. It only applies in the states. So if you get us out of the states and you move us into these territories, then they can treat us as animals. So you're exactly right. It's part and parcel of the same thing.
Now the Articles of Confederation, I want to say perpetual. That they flowed through everybody. It wasn't just limited to them at the time, and that is where the Constitution came from.
That's
Would we
exactly
be better
right.
off maybe to go back to the Articles of Confederation and take that limited number of powers away from the corporate government that we've got now?
I don't know that we can just purely go back. I mean, the Constitution is there. The Constitution is every bit as real as the Articles of Confederation. The question is, are you in a venue of a state of the Union, or are you in a territory? If you're in a territory, I believe it's Article 432, Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, that says the United States shall have, or it says the Congress. Let me see if I can find it. 432. No, maybe I'm mistaken. But yeah, here it is. Yeah, 432. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needed rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. The Congress functions as an aristocracy relative to the territories. The Congress doesn't say the government of the United States. It says the Congress. They ultimately are the sovereigns in this country, at least if you're in a territory. Those 535 people in the 435 in the Congress and another 100 in the Senate, they are the sovereigns who are running the territories, and they can do anything they want if you're in a territory. And that's why they can take away the arms, they can force you to get your vaccinations, they can do whatever they want. Are you in a territory? Are you in that venue? If you are able to make the distinction and argue effectively, no, I'm not within the territory of TX. I am within the borders of the state of Texas, and I am one of the people of the state of Texas. No, I'm not a person. I'm not an inhabitant. I'm not a citizen. I am one of the people in the same sense that the Constitution starts out, we the people of the United States. And the Texas Constitution refers to we, the people of the state of Texas. You got to be one of the people. It has to be something, in my opinion, that's incorporated in any of your paperwork, in any of your statements of identification. You got to be one of the people, and you've got to control your venue. That establish that you are within one of the states of the Union and that you're one of the people who comprise that state.
Now, I know that there are some that have made the statement that I'm flesh and blood, but flesh and blood could still be animal. In past tense and not living. But you have, and then the statement is I'm a flesh and blood, living, breathing man.
So what? So what?
Well, you're not a corporate fiction at that point.
I don't care if you're a corporate fiction. You're still an animal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Flesh and animals are flesh and blood, and they're living and breathing.
You've got to. It's not enough that you're living and breathing. It's not enough that you're alive. You've got to go all the way back to Genesis 1, 26 through 28, and it says, on the sixth day, God created man in his image and gave man dominion over the animals. Man and man alone is made in God's image. Man and man alone is given dominion over the animals. If you're not a Genesis 1:26 through 28 man, if that doesn't describe you, it's my opinion you are just an animal man. You're just like the sheep and the cows and the pigs and the goats. If you're not made in God's image, you are nobody, baby. You got to get hold of this idea. And there are people, in my opinion, this is my strategy. I mean, there's other people that have other ideas, and theirs may be better than mine or different from mine. But from me, I'm going to make this pitch every single time. I'm a man made in God's image as per Genesis 1:26 through 28. And who is going to stand up in public and deny it? My Bible says so. Where's the harm in it? I understand the power in it. Where's the harm in me saying it, though? I guarantee a jury is going to sit there and say, well, yeah, I think he is. I think he's right. He's a man made in God's image. Well, why not? Where's the harm in that? And the government can't stand up and say, no, we can't treat him as a man made in God's image, because if we do, we've got to give him these unalienable rights. Government has to protect those unalienable rights. It is inconvenient and even destructive of the government for the people who appear in that capacity. How does the government stand up and communicate that to a jury?